Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
Welcome into the NFL opening line report. Opening line report in the offseason, whatever we're calling it. We're going strong. It's Monday, March 7th. Welcome to March Madness. I am Drew Martin, like always, joined by Teddy Covers. Teddy, happy Monday morning to you. Welcome in, buddy. Yeah. Each and every Monday on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. If you're watching on replay, feel free to reply with any questions below. We'll answer them on next week's show. But huge shout out to the chat box, guys. Everybody welcome in. Feel free to fire out any questions. We are going to talk about NFL, little draft look here and NFL coordinator shifts, which could help in the offseason betting. And then also look at March Madness and any questions you guys want to hammer out in the chat box. So Teddy, let's start it off here. NFL coordinator changes. It's what we teed it up with last week. Where do you want to go with this? Because this is a huge part of betting. You know, a lot of people concentrate on head coaching changes, but actually you could make the argument coordinators are maybe even more important. So where do you want to point towards?
Sure. I mean, let's just go through some of the changes. We'll okay. Talk about who's got what and guys coming in. And much like the discussion we had about the new head coaches last week, all right, we don't want to overreact to what guys have been able to do in other situations in the past. You don't want to underreact to guys that have been able to put together good offenses or have been hired or trained by the right guys and have put together good offenses. But when we're talking about coordinator changes, look, the head coach is going to get the headlines, but the coordinators are the guys that actually design what the game plans are going to be. So it's something I pay a lot of attention to. Where to start? Well, let's start in the AFC East, where we're going to have, Ken Dorsey is taken over in Buffalo as a new offensive coordinator. He was their quarterback coach and passing game coordinator the last 3 years. Brian DeBall gone. Now Dorsey in. I don't think there's any it's not one of the situations where you're like, oh, big downgrade necessarily. No, same guy, same system, been in that offense. Should be relatively smooth transition. In Miami, however, with the head coaching change, and obviously you're bringing in Frank Smith as the new offense coordinator for the Dolphins. And this to me is between Dorsey and Smith. I got more concerns about Smith simply because he's coming in from a different situation. He was the Chargers offensive line coach and run game coordinator, whereas Dorsey's coming in from the Bills system. So Miami learning new terminologies, etc., with a young QB and a first-time offensive coordinator. So to me, that's a concern for the Dolphins. No new coordinators in the AFC North on the offensive side of the football. But in the South, Jaguars and Texans, two teams with new head coaches, will both have new coordinators. Texans get the tired retread, Pep Hamilton. But again, he was around last year as a quarterbacks coach and the passing game coordinator. I think that's a benefit for Houston when you're bringing in a guy who's familiar with the terminology and what's been done. As for the Jaguars with Press Taylor as the new OC. Again, you're bringing in someone from a different venue, and he was a Colts senior offensive assistant in 2021. And frankly, were you impressed with Indy's offense last year? I wasn't. So that's a concern for me. And in the AFC West, we got Denver with a new coach. We got the Raiders with a new coordinator, Mick Lombardi, coming in for Vegas, and Denver's bringing in Justin Alton as part of the new coaching staff. He was the Packers tight end coach the last 3 years, so another first-time offensive coordinator for Denver. That could be a concern for the Broncos. As for Lombardi and the Raiders, what we've seen is McDaniels has brought in a lot of his former aides and assistants in New England. So even though it's a new system for the Raiders, we are talking about at least the coach and his coordinator are both coming from the same place, which in theory should make it a little bit easier for the Raiders to transition. There's new coordinators from the AFC. Drew, we'll talk NFC in just a minute.
Yeah, in Teddy, great stuff, man, bringing that up. I got a couple questions just to bounce off you before we get to the NFC. One, okay, Ken Dorsey, that's the Miami Hurricanes old quarterback from, 01, 02?
Yes.
That's the same guy?
Yep.
Where's he been,
so,
man?
Yes. Let me double check that because I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure.
I was bringing it up because I actually looked at it when you were talking, and I mean, he's kind of rode under the radar for a couple decades now, being kind of he was the quarterback guys for the Miami Hurricanes back with arguably, some people make the argument the best college football team of all time. It was really, really good. He was a good college quarterback. Never really panned out in the NFL. That's why I'm kind of surprised to see him in the NFL. I almost would have thought he was like a coach in waiting in college football, but it looks like he spent some time at FIU and then with the Carolina Panthers. And then, like you talked about, he was in the Bills system, which also brings me to my next question, Teddy. Any comments on Ken Dorsey? And also, do you find a difference with an OC being elevated up to the OC mark from a position coach, being more of a bet on for that team rather than bringing in a whole new system coming into the new year?
So we'll just start with Dorsey. I mean, Dorsey's a guy who played a little bit in Canada. So he's got the Canadian background a little bit. And obviously you talked about his team. He was a scout with Carolina. And then he was an assistant director of athletics at FIU for a couple of years. And then obviously the last few years in Buffalo. But he's not in the tired retread category. He's a guy getting his first shot at a coordinator position. And you asked about that. So, when we're grading out these coordinator changes, right? When you have the head coach staying the same and the quarterback staying the same, boy, it's not like it can't work with a new coordinator, but it's better in general for early in the season, especially because, again, we're talking about off-season prep. Yeah, we're talking about season wins and future markets, but a lot of this is who's going to be undervalued in September, who's going to be overvalued in September, early on in the campaign. And when you have a team that is playing with, again, the head coach is there, the quarterback is there, you just promoted someone from within the system to be the offensive coordinator, you expect an easy transition in those spots. When you have a new coach, a new head coach, and or a new quarterback, and or you're bringing in a coordinator from somewhere else, you expect more growing pains. It's just that simple.
I like it, Teddy. Yeah, I totally agree with that, guys. So a difference there in who the OC is going to be. So, Teddy, yeah, let's steam through these NFC coordinator changes before we get to the draft thoughts.
Sure. And of course, you're talking about the former quarterback. You're like, whatever happened to that guy? You remember Mike Kafka from Northwestern?
I do. I remember the name.
Nice. Yeah. He had some success. Was it Gary Barnett era? I think he was. Anyhow, he's the Giants' new offense coordinator. He's coming with a good resume from Kansas City. He was the Chiefs QB coach and passing game coordinator. Of course, Northwestern grad. He's fairly bright. The Giants are a team that is constantly transitioning. And Kafka, I don't know if I love that fit. I really don't. You're coaching up Patrick Mahomes, and you're going from there to Daniel Jones, the first-time coordinator. I have my concerns. The NFC North has 4 new offensive coordinators next year. Luke Getsy for the Bears, Ben Johnson for the Lions, Adam Stenavich for the Packers, Wes Phillips for the Vikings. Obviously, it's a team that's a division that's going through their fair share of coaching changes right now. It's a division where, when you talk about if Aaron Rodgers is not back in Green Bay right now, we don't know. But if he's not back in Green Bay, I mean, who's any good in that division? In theory, it could be wide open. In theory. Now, Getsy's a guy who was the Packers quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator for the last 3 years for the Bears. And again, you're bringing in a new guy with a new system, with and it's had success in divisions. The division knows him well. We'll see how that works out for Chicago. Lions didn't really have an OC last year. We'll see what Ben Johnson does. He was a tight ends coach a year ago. For the Packers, they were again promoting from within. Adam Stenavich, he was their offensive line coach and run game coordinator. And for the Vikings, again with a new coaching staff, Wes Phillips, he was the Rams tight end coach and passing game coordinator, someone who's worked under Sean McVay. McVay's assistants seem to be getting jobs around the NFL. Phillips will get his chance to coach Kirk Cousins and company for a Vikings offense that's underachieved that time a year ago. Keep going. There's 3 more in the NFC.
Yeah, keep going.
All right, well, we've got the Panthers with Ben McAdoo, the former Giants offensive coordinator. He was the Jags QB coach 2 years ago. There's nothing I can say that's positive about Carolina right now. Okay. And McAdoo coming in as a tired retread who did not fare well in his previous stint with the G-Men is, like the Jags had all that great QB play 2 years ago. I don't know if I love that hire for Carolina, but the better assistants aren't necessarily going to Carolina because it sure has a feel of a 1-year gig. I don't know that Matt Rule makes it back for a 4th season, and he's yet to start his 3rd. And in the NFC West, the Rams bring in Liam Cohen from Kentucky. He was their quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator. That being said, McVay runs that offense. It's Cohen's job to implement it. I would assume that McVay is bringing in someone that he wants to work with. I view that as a non-factor. And the Niners have not yet replaced. Right now, their offensive coordinator position is officially listed as vacant. So we'll see what that looks like. The 49ers and the Patriots, 2 teams with vacant listings, as the OC don't know if Shanahan's even going to hire one necessarily for San Fran, because he tends to do a lot of that himself. So there's the new coordinators on the offense side of the football. And next week, we'll talk about the new coordinators on the defense side of the football. And again, it's not like we're going to make these huge leaps of faith with these coordinators one way or the other. But we want to know a little bit about their background, want to know a little bit of how the players are familiar with what they're trying to do. And as we read over the course of the next couple of months when it comes to mini camps, we're going to see what kind of feel we get as to how many of these offenses are ready to roll once August comes around, and how many of these offenses are going to still be very much a work in progress. So looking forward to those mini camp reports. But again, next week, we'll talk about defensive coordinator changes and what it might mean for the upcoming campaign. And again, when you're going through all of these and listing them out, saying, I don't love McAdoo with Carolina, does that mean I'm betting against the Panthers in every game? Not necessarily. That won't be the one. I said I like Lombardi for the Raiders. Does that mean I'm betting on the Raiders in every game? No, it's just, all right, one more check mark for this team, one more X mark for that team.
And Teddy, just scheduling here, because I do have a question about the NFC coordinators, but you want to talk DCs in 2 weeks with selection Sunday?
Yeah. Next week's next week we should focus on the openers for the March Madness. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yes,
So
we'll
2
talk
weeks.
about coordinators in 2 weeks. Next week with the Lions coming up for the big dance. And the one thing again, my job to predict line moves. All right. So if you watch the show next Monday, I'm going to do my best to predict whether you want to bet these NCAA tournament games right then and there, or whether you want to be waiting until closer to tip-off, depending on which side you like. So I'll do my best to give you an opening line report, proper opening line report for the college big dance next Monday. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll do coordinators. Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, and we're going to talk some March Madness here for conference championship shortly. A question I have for you, Teddy, it's pretty cool because you do the work for the NFL coordinator shifts, but there's also some overlap with college, because one of the names I noticed, because it was a bet on for me in Kentucky, is Liam Cohen, I believe is how you pronounce it. And he was great as an OC for the Kentucky Wildcats. And it's interesting to see him go from quarterbacks coach, I think, at the Rams to OC at Kentucky, and now back to OC at the Rams. So it's almost like he's taken steps up in class. I would think that's a bet on. You also mentioned that, hey, he might not be running the show, but I would read that as a bet on for the Rams kind of offense this upcoming year. Would you?
Sure, and the fact that McVay was able, some of the times when an assistant leaves town, like I'm never working for that asshole again,
Right.
And when a
Right.
guy is in town and then gets the promotion at the college ranks and then comes back to the NFL ranks, it tells us very clearly there's a good working relationship between the two guys. Otherwise, the job wouldn't have been offered and the job wouldn't have been taken. So I'm with you on that being a positive sign, but again, you're talking about the defending Super Bowl champs. When you're looking about teams that are value laden coming into next year, the defending champs not necessarily at the top of the list in that regard. But they might not. I mean, on the other side of the equation, we kind of we're like, oh well, the Rams, they won't be bet on in September next year. They're going to be, the defending champs. The Rams come in and they're kicking ass and taking names. We've seen teams off a Super Bowl win come back and be the best team in the NFL the following season for extended stretches. So I'm with you in theory on LA, the coordinator change being a net neutral, certainly not a negative for LA, even though they are the defending Super Bowl champs.
And how would you read that? I know you haven't really dug too deep for Kentucky. Would it be a huge negative for betting the Kentucky Wildcats next year in the SEC, or you got to kind of it's still yet to be seen?
Yeah, I've done zero college work yet, and I don't do college work until after spring practice is done. When spring practice is done, I read the culmination of the college stuff. So we're still a month away from really assessing what Kentucky's going to look like with the new OC.
Teddy, let's talk some NFL draft here. You sent over something by John Ewing here, Bet MGM, Evan Neal, draft position 1.5. Seeing what Kyle Hamilton 5.5, Adrian Hutchinson 2.5, Kayvon Thibodeau 4.5. Now there's some juice on some of these, minus 200 to the under on Adrian Hutchinson. Just one to throw out there. What are we thinking here? You interested in getting involved? Because I actually think the NFL draft can be a money maker, a beatable proposition if you put your work in. What are we thinking here with some of these draft props?
Yeah, the key is getting down early. And that's what, why we want to be talking about this stuff now. If you want to make money in the drafts, the better bets you're going to make are not going to be the week of the draft. They're going to be a month out. And this is, certainly one of those instances where, as I saw some numbers, hey, let's talk about it real quick. Now, Aiden Hutchinson at 2.5 with the under minus 200. There's always a scenario, but it's hard for me to picture Hutchinson getting past Detroit at 2. Especially given, the Lions' needs, his Michigan ties, and the fact that he may well be as good as anybody in the draft. There's a reason it's minus 200, but that's a bad number at 2.5. He's likely to go top 2. So Hutchinson is the one that stands out there, and that's probably juice worth laying. When you're talking about a guy who had a very fine combine and a very fine season and has all the makings of being, and of course, pass rushers are guys that can get picked with the first and or second overall draft. Hutchinson under is the one that makes sense, but obviously that's already juiced up. Nonetheless, it's one that I would look at. As for Neal, 1.5, I don't know who the Jags are taking 1. I haven't even gotten rumblings of who the Jags are taking number 1 yet. And you've got a couple guys you said were at 1.5 right there. Let's do some work, see if we can find one of them to bet over. Because only one guy is going number 1.
And Teddy, seeing some of these props, one of the I guess prominent offshore markets here has first quarterback selected. Seems to be a down year with quarterbacks, at least in my opinion. Malik Willis at minus 125. Malik Willis from Liberty, guys. He was actually an Auburn transfer. And then Kenny Pickett at plus 190, the Pitt quarterback, Matt Corral plus 240, before a big drop off to Sam Howell at plus 1600. Teddy, if Malik Willis goes first, just watched like the games that he played. First of all, the competition isn't very good, which brings up huge questions to me. And also, like, his accuracy isn't very good, Teddy. I don't think Malik Willis is going to go 1. And I haven't found a place to kind of bet that to say, hey, he won't go 1. But seeing him at minus 125 to be the first quarterback selected, I don't think that that's priced accordingly. Do you have any opinion here on the quarterbacks?
So Pickett's hands are too small, man. You know, you saw the big headlines last week. He had the 8.5-inch hands, which was the smallest of any quarterback in the league. You know, I would be surprised just because of Pickett's measurables if he ended up being the first QB taken. Who was the third one? There were three favorites, and I'm spacing on the third one right now.
Matt Corral.
And Corral's coming off injury.
That doesn't matter.
Right? Yeah. To be the first QB taken, it matters. Look, Howell's 1,600 for North Carolina. If he'd have come out last year as opposed to this year, even a first-round pick, you know, maybe you take the long shot there. If you see weakness with the favorite. Although, frankly, I thought Howell, if you watched Howell play at all last year,
he wasn't that
draft
good.
stock deserved to go down. He wasn't that good, and he made bad decisions under pressure, and he had an elite receiving core and couldn't get the ball to him. So probably not a bet I'm looking to make. And Willis is favored for a reason. You know, this is 5 years from now. Will any of the QBs drafted in this draft be starting in the NFL? You know, the over-under would probably be a half.
Yeah, it's not a great class. I would say Kenny Pickett maybe has a shot, but Matt Corral too. I actually give him props for playing in the bowl game. I really do. If I was a GM and a guy played in his bowl game, and especially like his comments of how could I not play in the bowl game? I'm here with the guys. You know, I would like that in my locker room. I think we're actually going to see a shift in the next couple years of guys opting out, especially from the quarterback position, Teddy. I just because I've made mental notes here of guys that have opted out of their bowl game and then had really no NFL career. You know, they end up getting drafted and then a couple years later, they're just not around anymore. I've seen a correlation with that, Teddy. I really have. And to see Matt Corral kind of buck that trend to be like, no, I am playing in the bowl game. I would find that as a bet on. I'd want him on my team, Teddy. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has success.
Yeah, I mean, success to the tune of being an NFL quarterback, or success to the tune of being an NFL star. You know, Corral had a gimmicky
it's
offense.
Tough to say star
with a gimmicky coordinator, and he had a pretty good receiving core, even with the defenses that he was facing. None of those edges will be there in the NFL.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did do that against SEC West defenses, like you point out. But it will be interesting to see, guys, how these guys do in the NFL. So, Teddy, we got some questions here about March Madness.
And
let's get into March Madness.
Just real quick, Drew, let me cut you off.
Why are we talking NFL?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, just give just last thing about this. All right. When it comes to you and I talking about, hey, is this quarterback any good or not? All right. We watch a ton of QBs in college. I'm not measuring the guy's arm strength. Okay. I don't know how well he's going to fit in any particular system or not. And the guys who spend their lives evaluating draft choices are wrong, 80% of the time? 70% of the time? So the fact that I'm like, yeah, I'm iffy on Corral's success. We're all wrong about this stuff all the time, including the guys that do it full-time 365 days a year. So players can and will overachieve or underachieve. And predicting that before they get drafted isn't easy for the GMs, isn't easy for the scouts, and isn't easy for us. That being said, I'll still take the over-under half a QB starting from this draft class 5 years from now. And I ain't betting the over.
Like it. Teddy Covers on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm on Twitter at Drew Martin Betts. Guys, feel free to shout us out. Also, feel free to reply below any questions you want us to answer on or next week's show. It will be the opening line report the day after Selection Sunday. So make sure to come back and join us next week. Let's talk some March Madness here, Teddy. One, we got some questions here on futures. West Coast tournament here, Gonzaga to win it minus 550. I don't know, San Francisco Dons, who they're playing tonight, plus 1,400. Worth a shot there on the underdog. Any opinion there? Just on betting futures as well, Teddy. Are you betting any conference tournament futures, or are you sticking to sides and totals?
So there's one particular type of conference tournament future that I look for. But let me answer the Gonzaga question first. It was on Wager Talk today. Earlier, I did a big game breakdown talking about how the Zags are a good bet tonight against the San Francisco team that I'll just give you the coach's quote after the last win. Let me just track it down real quick. The quote from Todd Golden talking about whether they've got the big man, Masalaski, I believe is the way you pronounce his name. Quote, I think he banged knees. I think he's going to be day to day. And of course, they need Masalaski in this matchup. He's one of only two players in the WCC that average a double-double in conference play. So, quote, I think he banged knees. I think he's going to be day to day. We'll talk to the trainers to see how he's feeling. The good thing is if we need to rest him on Monday to get ready for the tournament, NCAA tournament, we'll rest him on Monday. We clinched a bid tonight. It's the bottom line. So San Fran thinks they just clinched a bid. Gonzaga hasn't lost this game. Gonzaga's played in every West Coast Conference Finals since 1997. They won this game every year. And they've blown out the Dons each of the last four. They beat them up pretty good twice this year. They beat them up pretty good twice last year. If I'm playing, I'm laying in that one.
Okay.
Now I had to answer something else. What was the other question?
Just looking at some of these conference championship futures. I mean, it's fun to talk about. It's fun to kind of look at. And man, does this team have a shot? I'm seeing Middle Tennessee State, Teddy. This is one coming off the board at me. Conference USA plus 800. MTSU was the most profitable team in all of college basketball. That team's pretty good, man. Plus 800, risk 100 to win 800 to win Conference USA. I don't know. What are your thoughts overall on betting conference futures?
So Middle Tennessee is clearly a team that the betting markets, the broader betting markets, the wise guys have been fading the Blue Raiders all year, and they continue to fade the Blue Raiders even now, and that's why you're seeing the odds like you are on a team that was real good in the regular season and yet still not expected to get the auto bid from that conference. The metrics, their statistical profile is not pretty, and they've won more than their fair share of close games, and that doesn't necessarily translate to conference tournament play, even though they have experience winning all these close games. To do that repeatedly over the course of the next week is not something the markets are excited about right now. I have one rule for conference tournaments, and it's real simple. In the major conferences, fade the chalk. All right. Big Ten, ACC, maybe not less the ACC, especially with the way Duke closed out the season. Big Ten, Big 12, SEC, Pac-12, Big East. The elite teams are worried about next week, not this week. So when you find these number one seeds, even coming off a bye, even coming off a double bye, and the number two seeds, and they're laying prices in these conference tournament games, especially if they have a win under their belt already. A team that blows out a bad team in the first round and then they're ready to go home. So I'm looking to fade some of the favorites in the major conferences, not just in the first game of the tournament, in the second game as well. After they get that one win, a lot of these teams are, the coaching staff makes it very clear. Our focus is next week as opposed to this week. Now, in the one big leads, it's a whole different story. Now you're playing for your life. CUSA is a one bid league. But in the multi-bid leagues, the number one seeds, the number two seeds, number three seeds a lot of times, bet against teams, not bet on conference tournament week. You're not expecting everybody's A game. In the big dance, we expect everybody's A game every game. Conference tournament week, the top seeds, the major conferences, not so much. But the point spreads and the power ratings are still going to force the books to make many of these teams pretty heavy chalk. I'll be looking for spots to bet against. That's my number one rule of conference tournament betting is fade the chalk in the multi-bid leagues. They don't come to play.
Teddy, what about a philosophy here, betting unders in tournament games where it's kind of a neutral setting? Maybe like UNLV wouldn't count. But by the way, UNLV plus 700 to win the Mountain West, playing at home. That one kind of jumps off the board at me. But what about playing unders? If you have any comments there about the Mountain West plus 700 on UNLV, or maybe another team to win the Mountain West.
So the problem with UNLV playing on their quote unquote home floor for the Mountain West tournament is the Rebel fans don't show up.
But they're good now. They haven't been good in a while, so it might be different.
Clearly, you didn't watch them play against New Mexico over the weekend. I think UNLV is live to make a tournament run. They are one of a number of good teams in that conference, and I don't think they're the best one.
Okay. How many teams do you think?
If I'm looking for a long shot, if I'm looking for a long shot, I'm more likely to look at a Utah State, for example, than I would for UNLV.
Okay.
A much bigger dog. But I'm not expecting a long shot.
What, you think San Diego State's going to win it? Maybe Boise State?
So Boise State's won every close game all year, essentially. I mean, they've been extraordinary at winning, making good plays on both ends down the stretch of tight games. That bodes well for tournament play. If Boise State is a hiccup, and I don't know they're the most talented team, but the Aztecs are certainly primed. It's not like Colorado State's, garbage or Wyoming's garbage. There are multiple teams that are capable of making some noise in that in this tournament. And while I'm with you I like UNLV. I made money with UNLV. I cast a 5%er with UNLV as a dog. But I wouldn't look at the Thomas and Mack, the fact that tournament's being played there, as to being a huge edge for the Rebels. It's not. They don't draw. Certainly not the way they drew, 10, 20, 30 years ago. It's not close. And opposing fans come into the Thomas and Mack and fill it up. So it's not like it's a dead venue. Some of these venues are going to be dead. When we talk about what I'm interested to see, what the games look like for the Big West tournament at the where the heck's it? Sorry, I'm spacing right here. But it's at a venue I've never been to in Vegas. There's two of them. There's the Michelob Ultra Arena. That's the Western Athletic Conference. And the Big West is at the Dollar Loan Center Arena. And both those are brand new. The Dollar Loan Center Arena is out in Henderson. But they're both unfamiliar venues for teams that haven't played there all year. And it's one thing you're playing at Thomas and Mack, where you travel there every year. It's not an unfamiliar venue. It's not unfamiliar sight lines. When you get into these unfamiliar venues at the end of the season and the defense is there, you'll see a lot of fouling in some of these games. If they're down by 8 with 2 minutes to go, they can start fouling right then and there. And full game unders can be a real sweat as a result. But some of these first half unders in unfamiliar venues, Drew, first half unders are absolutely something I'm looking at this time of the year. And I wouldn't argue, if you wanted to play the Bakersfield Northridge under or the Cal Poly UC Davis under tomorrow, I wouldn't talk you out of either one. You want to play, Rio Grande Valley and California Baptist under? That's 149. Cal Baptist doesn't want to play slow, but even in this weird, when you talk about new venues and unfamiliar sight lines, you do expect the shooting percentage to go down. And the way I like to take advantage, not necessarily full game unders, because of that extra fouling situation at the end of these games. They can go on forever the last 2 minutes. But I do like to play my fair share of first half unders in games like you were talking about, Drew, where the teams aren't comfortable with the sightlines.
Yeah, there's a couple guys. There's more than a couple. I mean, the SEC tournament is in a new location in Tampa, Florida. We got one of the conferences playing in where the Dallas Cowboys do their training. That's the Conference USA tournament, I believe. So a lot of different stuff going on. Just doing the research on these different tournaments is very important.
Yeah, Atlantic City, where the Metro Atlantic is playing this year. Atlantic City, those venues have been really low scoring in other years, which is worth noting. There's 3 games from the MAC, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. They'll all be played there tomorrow. Ryder, Manhattan, Canisius, Fairfield, Quinnipiac versus Marist. And that venue, again, historically has been one of the lower scoring ones in the Boardwalk at AC.
Teddy, anything else you want to touch on here? Conference tournament time. But before I guess we got like 5 minutes left.
Sure. I mean, so there's something that Ralph Michaels brought up. I did a show on Sirius XM channel 159. That's Sports Grid Radio Network. I do a show every week, 2 shows every week on Sports Grid over the weekend. You catch the podcast version. But I had Ralph on last week and was talking about the rested versus unrested in conference tournaments. And I thought it was important enough to make note. And you don't see that throughout the whole tournament. You're going to see rested versus unrested with a team that won, one of the lower seeds won yesterday, and now they're facing a rested higher seed today. And when one team comes in with no rest and the other team comes in with rest, last 5 years, last 10 years, there's profitability betting on the rested team as opposed to the team playing their second game in 2 days. Now, as you start getting into the 3 games in 3 days and 4 games in 4 days type of scenarios, you really want to check those minutes. And again, guys are playing with adrenaline. It doesn't matter all the time, but just look at yesterday as a class example with Loyola Chicago going against Drake. And Drake is coming off that multiple OT game, the OT game the previous day, and the game the day before that, in which all the starters, 4 of the 5 starters, were at 32 plus minutes. And Drake was gassed, and they were gassed down the stretch, and they were gassed at the end. Hey, it was a lucky cover for Loyola. They hit the 4 free throws in the last couple minutes, or in the last couple of seconds, I should say, they hit 4 free throws to win by margin. But the concept of finding the team that is completely gassed, that left it all on the floor last night to get the win, those tend to be teams I'm looking to bet against, especially against an arrested foe.
I like it. Teddy covers. We're breaking it down here. March Madness. We got opening line report next Monday, guys. Come back and join us right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel right after Selection Sunday. So we'll let you know where we think these lines are moving to get the best entry point for your contest, anything you're doing out there, but most importantly, your betting. Teddy, we do have time here. We've tried to get to this topic for the last 2 weeks. DraftKings Stock, really talking about sports betting overall coming into March Madness here. I want to get your opinion. We've seen DraftKings go from $72 back in April to now it's $18, currently down 11% today alone. Of course, the market down. Guys, don't look at, well, maybe look at your stock market here, your 401k or whatever, but it is ugly today, down 600 points on the Dow. So this is a good day, a bad day to look at, how your stocks are doing, but actually maybe a good day to buy in, just kind of buying the dip if that's your philosophy here, Teddy. My question to you, though, is DraftKings down here at 18, huge off of their what their overall high was. Do you think this is a good buy here for DraftKings? I mean, the market is kind of punishing companies that aren't profitable yet, but still long run here, what DraftKings is doing, which I know it's just land grab for later. I actually think that that's going to work. I really do, Teddy, over the next 4 or 5 years, but a lot of people don't. What are your overall thoughts here on how this kind of plays out for the sports books, their stocks, and how they do, how successful they are over the next, say, 4 or 5 years?
So let me start with this. I'm not a stock expert. Okay, so take what I say with a grain of thought, with a grain of salt. And when you look at the global macro conditions that affect the broader markets as a whole, there's certainly more uncertainty in the global markets this week than there's been, in the last 12 to 20, since COVID, and maybe more, even before COVID. But when you're talking about a growth industry and a stock that is now a quarter of what it was when it was at its high, of course I'd give you a buy recommendation on DK. Where's it going to go? There's only one room for the sports books that are branded already, all right, that have the public recognition. It's different for the sports books that don't have that public recognition. Your Bet Rivers has more work to do than your DraftKings or your FanDuels or your Bet MGMs. But at $18 for something that was selling at 72, I wouldn't talk you out of it.
Okay. And do you think some of these sports books are better buys just from, because I know you're not a stock expert, but being in this business, I mean, would you kind of point people towards different sports books to invest in? Maybe a Penn National, maybe a DraftKings, maybe one of these, like Golden Nugget is down huge. Would one of those kind of be better, or no, not too much into that?
So again, this isn't something where I've done a ton of research going into today where I can come and give you anything with confidence. All that being said, the name brands, the brands that already have a name recognition, okay, that everyone knows what, that MGM is, everyone knows FanDuel. I think they have an edge. They have an edge in every sense of the word. And I would be looking to buy those before I was looking to buy, I'd be looking to get the Caesars of the world before I was looking to get the Golden Nuggets of the world.
Okay.
In general, this is one where you want to stick with the blue chips. And I think your long-term ROI. And again, if you're looking at day trade or short-term, no, you don't want to do it. I mean, I don't know, because we don't know what the economy is going to look like. And these stocks are going to be based on how much, spending money that people have to bet. That said, in times of uncertainty, betting doesn't go down, betting goes up.
As long as the cash is there.
Yeah.
The handle is very correlated, guys, with the economy. So when people have more money, the sports books are going to do better. So that's why when people are like, oh, the record broke for most bet. Well, it's kind of, yes, it's true, but it's more to do with, well, that's because the economy, the stock market is so high, rather than, hey, betting is becoming that much more popular, which it is, but it's more correlated with the economy, at least in what I see here, Teddy. Hey, last question for you. DraftKings spent $600 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 alone as their operating expenses. Teddy, I didn't realize they were spending that much money. That's a huge deal with why their stock is dropping. But we've also seen other reports, like you sent me a couple weeks ago, Caesars is cutting back on their spending. Where do you think sports betting content goes? Is there going to be more spending? Is there going to be less spending? What does this look like over the next year or two, in your opinion?
So I was really surprised to see Caesars make the move that they did when they're like, oh, yeah, we spent enough on acquisition already. Now we're just going to consolidate and try to consolidate. That's why I sent it along to you. And, of course, their share price went up 8% on the news.
Right.
Because they've been spending, the advertising dollars that these guys are spending are not cheap. And when you're talking about, but in the early stages of sports betting, and make no mistake about it, we're still very much in the early stages of legalized, regulated sports betting. What this market's going to look like 10 years from now is not what the market looks like right now. And when you're into the early stages, it's all about market share and market grab, and get as many clients as you have and get as many customers as you have. And then you worry about the profit side of the equation later. So all the books are looking to do right now, or many of the books are looking to do right now, is gain market share. And the books with the big market shares over the long term are going to be worth a lot more than the ones that don't have it, which is why I was a little bit surprised by Caesar's move. It's expensive to bring in new clients. It's not like you can these significant advertising campaigns are just easy come, easy go. They put a ton of money into them, and they're not in a position right now where they have to return their money to the investors. They're all allowed to spend as much as they want right now because they're all in acquisition mode, but it won't always be that way. And many of these books will end up being pretty profitable once the client acquisition costs go down and when the market share is already there.
Totally agree, Teddy. I think they're all, long-term guys. I'm personally looking to buy them at this dip, but Teddy covers Drew Martin. Guys, we'll be back next week for the opening line report, March Madness style. You don't want to miss that one. If you're liking the content, please smash the like button. Feel free to reply below, guys. Any questions, we'll answer them next week. Teddy, any final thoughts here before we shut it down?
Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Appreciate it. It's always fun to spend time on a Monday breaking down the world of the sports betting world. And it's good, that we got to talk on a bunch of different topics today, Drew. I look forward to next week's show. We get to break down the big dance opening numbers, a true opening line report for next Monday. So we'll see you guys then. Between now and then, enjoy the games. Good luck.
Best of luck, guys, in conference tournament. We'll knock it out of the park next Monday. Come back and join us, guys. Best of luck until then. Thanks for tuning in.
Between now and Selection Sunday on March 13th, there are still tons of regular season college basketball action to go. Plus, all of the conference tournaments and WagerTalk and Sports Memo are announcing their March Madness Bonanza special, which includes the rest of college basketball regular season, conference tournaments, NCAA tournament through the national championship, and any plays released in the NIT or CBI tournaments. Sign up for this promotion now at your favorite handicappers homepage and get the rest of the college basketball season through the national championship on Monday, April 4th for just $177. That's under $5 a day for one of the best betting experience in sports. Act fast as the March Madness Bonanza special is only available for a limited time.